there, and welcome to Locked In Conversations. I'm Charlotte Gibson, and today I'm joined by Ben Stevenson, Senior Health and Wellbeing Consultant. So, what are we going to be chatting about today? We're going to be talking about mental health with a specific focus on men's mental health. I was reading an article last week in relation to men's mental health, and I just wanted to pull out a few things that it was talking about. Question to you, Ben, is what do you think the risk factors are for poor mental health?
So I think the first thing really is that societal pressure around men. So massively stereotyping, but there is certainly a kind of a feeling of being self-supporting, not wanting to show weakness. And as much as there's been loads done over recent years to break down the stigma, break down those barriers, I think you can see in the figures that you've shown at the start that there is still that feeling and still that issue. Secondly, I think kind of flowing on from that is a lack of understanding of the issue. So, that kind of comes in two parts for me. So firstly, not knowing at what point to go and source help. I think that self-supporting mentality means that, men probably feel they're okay to a point and not knowing when is okay to go and get support, or actually, I need some support right now. And secondly, on from that, I think that lack of understanding comes from the preventative side and actually just keeping mentally well. We all know that mental health is kind of a continuum. It's not just when you're struggling. So it's that lack of understanding of actually, what do I need to do to stay mentally well and engage with certain support services or tools to keep mentally well, and that kind of awareness. So I think the combination of those two things really just leads to a lack of engagement, and with all support services and with getting help.
What do you do to support your own mental health?
So I think the number one thing for me is staying active. We did a challenge at work where we cycled from Land's End to London. At the time, I was slightly overweight and lost quite a lot of weight doing it, which really changed me personally. I went from being tired every night to actually having loads more energy, and I think from there I've kind of kicked on and changed my lifestyle. So definitely staying active really helps, and kind of tying in with that, trying to eat the right stuff at the right time. Also staying socially connected, which is a bit more difficult at the moment. Just talking from personal experience, I'm not great with my phone, which kind of limits my social connectivity at the moment, but certain things like online gaming at the moment, and just trying to force myself to talk to my friends and keep that conversation open. I think that certainly helps. One thing I'm trialing at the moment is meditation through one of the apps. So we'll see how that goes, but early days at the moment. But that's probably the main things I do to look after my own mental health at the moment.
What do you feel business's role is in supporting employees' mental health?
Off what you said there, really, I think the first thing is actually looking at what they're offering and what support is there. So that comes in a couple of forms. So not just benefit provisions, providers, that there are many and that we work in, but also making sure internal policies and procedures are there. There's various different support services that businesses are engaging in, the likes of mental health first aiders, line manager training. I think that has to be there alongside the provision, but also, like you said, having those benefits in place. There's a great suite of offerings out there now that go through right from kind of that traditional treatment style to also the preventative style, with the likes of Headspace and meditation apps, as I mentioned before. So I think that's probably the first thing, and I think probably is as a country, we're getting there in terms of companies having that provision and moving away from that traditional approach. And I think the next stage really is around communication. So not groundbreaking, everyone knows that you have to communicate. But I think as we start to get those benefit offerings more in place, more holistic, the next stage really is just increasing that engagement. Kind of tied into that is an education piece. So going back to what I said around kind of lack of understanding around mental health issues, we work in it every day, as you said. So, there's probably an assumption that we are further along that journey than we probably are. So I think education is still such a strong part. So for a business to be able to educate their employees kind of ties in with that communication piece. It breaks down the barriers within their within their own business, and kind of creates that culture of openness around the issue. But also just educates employees on being able to take action, because it's ultimately them who has to take that first step. So I think that's really key. And finally, just making that kind of offering and those support services relatable, simple, and easily accessible. Speaking from my own experience, I think if you're looking to get help and support, you're looking for the first excuse to not do anything, to go, oh, it's too difficult, I'm going to step away. So the easier you can make it to access those services, the more relatable it is. It's just going to increase that engagement and increase that level of support access.
So what do you think the common mistakes businesses make in supporting mental health, and specifically men's mental health?
So I think probably the first one is ticking a box. It's such a big issue, and it's been on the agenda and the radar of businesses for a number of years now. But I think we've kind of got to that point where, as I said before, the benefit offering and policies and support is getting there, and the next stage really is that engagement bit. And I think the error that we see is stopping at that point, putting things in place and thinking that that's done. I think the really key bit is actually that engagement bit. So following on from just putting it in place and kind of tying back to that accessibility bit as well, because just putting something in place doesn't mean that people are going to use it. So it's both communication, but also making sure that it's easy to access those services. It's understandable for employees, and it's there and easily accessible, as I said.
The other thing is as well, what I typically see is you've got all these different types of support services. So it might be an EAP, it might be the private medical, it might be, and you're doing absolutely everything you possibly could. But the understanding, just on that education piece, but the understanding of how it all fits together. So if there's an acute mental health problem, where do you go to? Where do you signpost people to? Once businesses get their head around actually what is the right service at the different points of someone's mental health spectrum, then, I think it becomes a lot easier to communicate and also to educate people on what to do. Okay, you're having something very minor called the EAP. That would be the best thing for you. Okay, you need more intensive treatment rather than just talking therapy. Use the private medical insurance. And there are lots of things in between. Okay, this pool of population are actually doing really well. How can we keep them well? How can we keep them connected, engaged, active and moving to stop them from or reduce the chances of them becoming unwell? And I think mapping it out really, I'm a visual person, so doing like a chart or a flow for me is really helpful to kind of visualize where everything sits. But just mapping it out, I think, is a good little trick that I think will help support your mental health strategy. So we've outlined some of the brilliant things that businesses can do in order to support employees' mental health. We all know, though, there are still gaps, particularly with problems with addiction, gambling, alcohol, drugs. There seems to be a gap in terms of what a business can do to support employees there. And this is where we really look to your community, your local support networks. Whilst I'm about to ask this question, I do appreciate that everywhere in the UK is different, and what is available to everyone will be different. But are there any national charities that you've seen or support services that really stand out as being able to sort of provide top class support for people?
Yeah, so there's loads of charities out there that offer so much support, and I think the really good thing about a lot of the charities is there's varying degrees of support, so people can access what they want to access and what works for them. Just to name a few, you've got the likes of Calm, Men's Health Forum, the Samaritans, but one recently that I've kind of engaged with and seen do some really good stuff is the Heads Together, led by Prince William. I think that's a really good way of kind of breaking down those barriers for men particularly, and kind of engaging with that sport aspect as well. So yeah, that one's pretty engaging and something that I see is really good. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. As we've highlighted here, there's loads of charities that offer easy to access help, breaks it down, makes it easy for you to understand where to go, what to do. Secondly, most companies offer an EAP, so that's a great area to access support, from counselling to just talking to someone. So I think it's back to that, don't be afraid to talk, but also kind of going back to what I said at the start, open that conversation with your friendship group, with your community, because you're not going to be alone in struggling. Other people will be as well. And actually just opening that conversation can help you and others so much. And that goes for everyone, not whether you're struggling or not. I think just opening that conversation, getting it on the agenda and making sure then that your friendship group's aware that it's okay to talk about it if they're struggling. I think that's a great place to start as we kind of break down those barriers.
So we've mentioned employee assistance programme a few times today, and certainly when I speak with my friends, pretty much everyone, other than those who work in micro businesses, have access to an EAP. And the perception is really interesting. Their perception is they're concerned that the data gets back to their employer, that somehow it isn't confidential, or that actually it is just for counselling. And I just wanted to take the opportunity, whilst we are talking about mental health, just to kind of reassure people it is absolutely confidential. Your business cannot see that you have used the service. Whatever you say does not get back to them. So if you are having challenges at work or something that you feel that you wouldn't want to get back to the business or be found out in some way, I just wanted to provide that reassurance that they absolutely cannot find out whatsoever. And it really is just a very helpful tool for you to use as and when you need it. And the other point is as well, just in terms of EAPs, it's the counselling services are absolutely fantastic, because the waiting lists on the NHS are significant, and to be honest, I can't see that changing anytime soon, unfortunately. So if you need quick access to a counsellor, it's absolutely brilliant, and you can have face-to-face, or you can have telephone sessions. But it is so much more than that. They've got brilliant budgeting tools that you can use, and we know that there's a lot of evidence out there to suggest that finance and loss of control of finances is a key driver for men's mental health, i.e. if there's a sense of being out of control with debt or problem debt, then it can result in poor mental health. And there are lots of tools on there and advice on what you can do with debt management on there as well. And again, some of these are just articles, 5-minute readers. You can look at it on your phone. So, and most EAPs have some kind of an app to utilise. So really be very discreet with the information that you're looking at. So I just wanted to sort of highlight that, because it is a really useful tool. And yes, it's not appropriate for everybody, but I think it's far more expansive than you think. So check it out. Thank you so much, Ben, for taking the time to talk to me on Locked In Conversations today. I'm Charlotte Gibson. See you next time.